Well, there are reports that school children have been shot and arrested in the unfolding political crisis in Eswatini. The Swaziland National Association of Teachers says this happened at Mayiwane Primary and High School. It's not clear how many pupils were wounded or detained. Eswatini has been rocked for months now by protests calling for change of government and that King Mswati the Third relinquish control over the state. To talk more about the latest developments, we're joined by the Secretary General of the Swaziland National Association of Teachers, Sikelela Dlamini. Mr. Dlamini, a very good evening to you. Welcome to News at Prime. First things first, speak to us about the shooting and detention of these school children. How many were shot? How many were arrested?
Thank you, my leader. Good evening to you and to the viewership at large. And thanks again for hosting us in this show. And thanks again for posing that critical question to us as the organization representing teachers in that country. Yes, and then coming to your question, we can confirm that there has been in recent times indiscriminate shooting of school-going children and the arrest of so many of these school children. In actual fact, we can safely say, after the Minister for Education and Training unilaterally announced the reopening of schools, that is where everything started. In actual fact, it was just a continuation of what happened before they announced the abrupt closure of schools. And so, in the week that we are completing today, from Monday, when all grades were forced to return, in the various schools around the country, the state security organs were actually invading schools, searching for some students because we have been informed that they are having a list of their targets, and then they are arresting these kids. And in other instances, the kids have been shot by the police and they have been injured. That is why so many schools are even closing, even in the week that we are finishing today. And that then therefore spells doom for the country, because the response, the body language by the government, by the security organs, it means that a war has been waged against the citizens and against the learners in particular. And so far, we can confirm a total number of 38 learners who have been either shot or arrested or bored. In actual fact, the number that I am giving you is a number that is already in our records, because as SNAT, yes, we are representing teachers, but as a human rights organization, we frown upon everything and anything that seeks to undermine human rights. And since students or learner rights are human rights, if they are violated, we've got to stand up and defend them, particularly because as young ones, they are indefensible at the present moment.
You use the phrase young ones. You also said that you believe that there's a list of pupils who are being targeted. Are these pupils who also identify as political activists in Eswatini?
Yes, in actual fact, the government is looking out for this case, not necessarily to say they are political activists, because as part of the citizens, they have joined the national call that is to demand multi-party democracy. And we may not necessarily say that is only done by political activists, but it is done by all Swazis, by all freedom-loving Swazis.
So when you say you believe that there's a list of school pupils who are being targeted, why do you believe that these aren't random shootings, perhaps during protests?
Yes, they are being targeted. There is a list because the information that we are gathering, we are still gathering. In fact, the number of learners that I am giving you is a list that is already with our lawyers, because, as I said, we have resolved to defend the young ones because no one is ready to defend them. And our lawyers have already prepared court papers to defend this. So the 38 is a list that we already have, and we have been receiving calls And even today, I received some calls to say kids are afraid, they are running helter-skelter, they are everywhere, scattered all over the country because they are afraid. And then that means we need to move at a supersonic speed in trying to get at the bottom of that, because this spells doom and calamity for the country and for the young ones.
How old are some of the ones who've been shot or arrested?
Young as 13 years, 14 years, 15 years. And we know for a fact that there are those who are already incarcerated, that is behind bars, they are above 18 years. Those that are above 18 years, you know what the state machinery does. They play that down. They don't want to come up with the correct information as to how many of those, because they then give themselves false comfort to say because they are now above 18 years, then therefore they've got to be taken through the full process of the legal system. But there are those who are well below the age of 18. And remember, we as Swaziland, we have got what is known as the Child Protection Act of 2012. That then says how you should relate to kids if there is anything wrong that has been done by the kids. And the embarrassing conduct by the police on the kids, arresting them, butchering them, shooting at them like wild animals and like subhumans, is done on young kids who are otherwise supposed to have been treated in a humanely manner.
Mr. Dlamini, so King Mswati, in some of the reporting that came out of Eswatini in around, I think it was October, accused the pro-democracy movement in the country of using these children, school children, for what, and I want to quote here, he said, were ulterior and devilish motives. What's your response?
I have always maintained this, and we have always been clear on that question as an organization, to say, as the teachers, we have been trained to teach, and our work, it doesn't involve tools or equipment, but it involves human beings who are our kids, and then therefore they are our main clients. And we have been telling to anyone who cares to listen to say, a kid, even if a kid is of kindergarten age, but that kid is not a quarter of a person, is not a half of a person, is a fully developed human being with his or her own aspiration and view standpoints on issues. And therefore, it is very, very confusing, and it is very, very worrying if political leaders are going to then shift the blame and start to point fingers into saying there are other people who are behind the student protests, who are inciting the kids. That is an insult not only to the intelligence of the teachers or the pro-democracy movement activists, but also to the learners too. They are actually telling the world to say, you do not have any mind, any common sense with you to assist you in thinking certain processes through. They are actually saying, no. All your senses are on leave. You don't have anything. You cannot think for yourself. That is an insult, and it cannot be acceptable at this particular point in time. And we are saying, in this era of globalization and internationalism, it may not be accepted to treat human beings in this manner.
So this leads me to the question, and I'm sure you've heard this before, people who are saying that children should not be allowed, or teenagers and adolescents should not be allowed to be on the streets protesting. They should be in class continuing with the business of the day, which is the business of learning. Do you agree with that?
I don't agree. We don't agree with that narrative as an organization, because we are saying here we need to address the question of the source of the problem. It is going to be, it may be futile, and it may not be successful wisdom for anyone to argue in that particular line, because you know the conditions under which the kids are learning inside the classroom within schools are affected by and large by what is happening in the political environment outside the school, because what is happening within the school system is actually a product of the policies, of the regulations, of the pieces of legislation that are promulgated by those holding political offices. And therefore, the reasoning of Swazis and the kids in particular has come to a level where we are in agreement to say it is not going to assist anyone to be reformists in the true sense of the word in trying to nurse the situation, but rather it is important for us to go to the root cause of the problem, to address it for humanity and posterity to be able to enjoy full benefits of being human beings in this country.
Sikelela Dlamini from the Swaziland National Association of Teachers. Good to have your time tonight, sir. Thank you.
When viewership back home. Thank you.